We'll give everybody another minute or two to switch over here to us. And just so that we preserve the quality of the audio and the video for now, unless you're one of the speakers, go ahead and stay muted and your video off, and we'll allow you to turn on video and unmute here in just a couple minutes. I haven't seen anyone else join us for a couple minutes, so I think we will go ahead and get started. Tonight, we have two different agents almost from opposite corners of the state. Jenna Lee Godsey is from the Twin Creeks District, and Jenna Lee works specifically with youth livestock projects. And Krista Harding is from the Southwind Extension District in the southeast part of the state, and she is their local unit director for that district. And so with that, I think, and just so you all know, we are recording, and we'll post one of the sessions to the web for you to view the sessions that you haven't seen. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Jenna Lee. Tonight, we are covering showmanship and round robin, and probably more specifically round robin than showmanship, but that is our showmanship competition at most of our local fairs. And I know that these two ladies do things vastly different across the state. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Jenna Lee first and have her share how they handle things in the Twin Creeks District.
All right, thanks, Kelsey. You might have to bear with me. I've had some kind of a head cold, so if I have a coughing fit, I'll try to mute myself. But like Kelsey said, I am Jenna Lee Godsey with the Twin Creeks District. My home county is Graham County, so Hill City. I've been with Twin Creeks Extension District for 6 years now, so this is pushing my actual 7th county fair. And we've had some changes along the way, particularly in the round robin division. And I would say the situation we're in now has probably been that way for 3 to 4 or so years, was when we had changed that previously. But to start out for showmanship, our age breaks are broken into your typical junior, intermediate, senior. So they show juniors are 7 to 9 years of age, intermediates are 10 to 13, and seniors are 14 and plus. And I know that's different for every county, even within our district, the 4 counties of our district, but that's kind of how we do those in Graham, and that is across the board for all, whether that's static exhibits or livestock projects. The biggest change that we made a few years back was actually, and this is probably different than most counties, but we sat down with superintendents, fair board, our 4-H council, and our 4-H livestock committee a few years back, and actually set it up as a requirement for kiddos who showed in showmanship with whatever species they were showing in, that they were basically agreeing to participate in the round robin competition if they showed in showmanship of their species. That was kind of done as a hybrid year. We'll see how it works. We were hoping that instead of losing participation in showmanship, which we did not want to do, we were encouraging kids to have the confidence to go into round robin if they were chosen to represent their species. And actually, surprisingly, I can only think of one kid off the top of our head that we lost out of showmanship across all species. And at the time, we have really good participation in our showmanship classes. We actually secure the judges on our out of the extension office for the livestock show, which includes the showmanship contest. And then we also have a separate judge who comes back and does our round robin competition, which is a couple of days later. Our round robin competition is set up to include horses, beef, swine, sheep, and goats. And we take the top senior and top intermediate from each species. And I know that's another difference in a lot of counties. Some will only do, the top 2 seniors or, what have you. But in our county, it's the top individual from senior and intermediate. If one child is maybe the top beef showman as well as the top swine showman, which happens a lot in small counties where a lot of kids are doing a lot of different things. That child will get to select which species they want to represent, and then we'll actually just pull up the reserve champion, or hopefully, we don't have to go into third or fourth or whatever, but into that next species if we need to. We have our set up, and I know this is another difference in a lot of counties. I've helped judge round robins where there's a separate judge for each species, or maybe a couple of different species, but we have one judge for all 5 of our species, and we rotate through those species as a group. And usually it's the seniors all go in once and do swine, and then the intermediates will come in and do swine, and then we'll rotate into beef, so on and so forth. But they get approximately 10 minutes per species, and about halfway through that, we have the kids switch animals so that they are getting the opportunity to try their hand at a different animal, because there are times that, you have animals in the ring that are a handful and don't always work the best for kids. And that kind of gives them the opportunity not to be, I guess, set up to fail, if you will, because that tend to be a concern of a lot of parents, it seems like. So that's why we go ahead and switch those at approximately 5 minutes. And it isn't always 5 minutes. It's ultimately up to the judge that is judging. If he or she has seen enough after 3 minutes, we may switch early, but we never go longer than 5 minutes. As I said a minute ago, we rotate among the species as a group. We actually draw numbers to determine the animal. So, if you've got 5 seniors, we will go through and have 5 animals, and each animal is designated a number. And they are to draw a number that is not their own animal. And that is the one that they will start out with. And then usually we just kind of rotate down the line to make it easy whenever it's time to switch animals, or in the case of swine, the judge will actually select their next animal for them. Let's see. The exhibitor provides the equipment, for their own animal, if it's whether that's a whip and a brush or whatever that might be. But we, as in myself and or our livestock superintendents, will go out and find additional equipment to make sure that we have what we need for each species, so that each kid goes in the ring with what they could need for that species. We do use the champions animal, and then myself and the superintendents do select other animals within that species and talk to the kids and make sure that they're okay with it, just to make sure that we're getting safe animals. At this point, we've already seen them in the show ring, so we know if there's any that like to act up or kind of get a little bit spooky. We try not to use those as much as possible, and just to make sure we keep everybody as safe as possible. And then we select a grand and reserve within each age division of the round robin competition. So that's all I had written down as notes, unless, Kelsey, there's something that I'm missing that you want me to hit on.
I don't think so, but let's stay tuned for questions. I'm going to have Krista go ahead and share how they handle things in Neosho County. And then be thinking of your questions, everyone. And if you need to, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will address them before we go back to the main session.
Hey, thank you, Kelsey. My name is Krista Harding. As she mentioned, I'm the director for the Southwind District, but I have 4-H responsibilities in Neosho County. To share with you the size of the county, we have about, I think we average between 170 to 180 4-Hers each year. So our round robin showmanship, as Jenny was describing hers, I thought it sounded very similar to mine. However, we do have some differences. So the champion showmen in both the senior and intermediate divisions are the ones that are selected for our round robin showmanship. We actually offer the opportunity for those that qualified in beef, dairy goat, meat goat, swine, sheep, horse, dairy cattle, and then I think we're kind of unique that we do have dog in our round robin. So those are all eligible to compete. The 4-Hers actually show their own animal to be judged, and then they allow that their animal to be shown in the ring by the other senior intermediate competitors, respectively. And they show for a specific period of time. Like Jenny said, if we have more than one youth qualify, we let them make that choice which species they want to show. They have to let me know that by a certain period of time. We have some pretty salty little showmen here, and I have been known to go down at least 3 deep to try to get a participant in whatever species that might be. So the kids actually rotate through the round robin competition together. And when I say that they rotate together, what I mean by that is, say the senior beef kid and the intermediate beef kid, they're always going through the rotation together. So before the competition starts, I have all of the competitors come over and sit in a group of bleachers together. And they watch everybody go through, and I hired 2 judges to make this go a little bit faster. And so the judges ahead of, the beginning of the competition, they will have a little conversation amongst themselves, like which species they feel comfortable with, and we try to divide them out. I let them do that on their own. It makes me no difference how they decide to do that. They do work off of a score sheet. So each judge will have 2 score sheets. So one for the senior competitors and then one for the intermediate. The exhibitors have back numbers that the judges work off of. And like I said, then the kids rotate together. So the beef kids, say for example, they bring their animals in. I allow the judges to determine how long they want to work those kids when they're done. Then I look over to the bleachers and I'm like, all right, horse kids, you're in the ring next. And so we just kind of get this rotation down for them to come in and show. It can get a little bit taxing, especially for the pigs, to say go through 7 or 8 times worth of rotations. So most of the time, the parents are aware of maybe if the animals are getting tired or they need some water and try to take care of that. But I think it works pretty well for us. The judges actually tally up their scores before they leave. They will talk to the kids, kind of give them some pointers, some things that they were looking for. I want them to tally and determine the winner before they leave. The awards then are given later that evening. The scores are posted, and the winner will receive belt buckles. So I think that pretty well covers the gist of how the round robin is done in Neosho County.
Okay, thank you, Krista. Looks like we have about 15 minutes before we go back into the regular session. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
I will say, as Krista was talking, I thought of a couple of things that I didn't mention, but we also do. She mentioned the back numbers, which we also provide those, as well as score sheets for the judges. Ours is just kind of set up on a 1 to 10 rating for each species. So they just keep it math easy at the end of the day, and they just kind of cruise through and set a 1 to 10 score for them as well. And then our judges also talk to the kiddos before they leave, which I think the kids and parents really appreciate too.
Thank
I
you.
would say, I see that Richard Fechter's on here, and Richard, he's come over and judged a couple of times for me, so he could probably chime in what judging in Neosho County's like, maybe.
Generally, and Krista, you may have mentioned it. Do you guys have a separate superintendent that organizes your round robin?
I do not. I would say when I personally had a child still in 4-H and trying to do that and be an agent, I definitely recruited volunteers to man the round robin for me just to take me out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
We do not either have a separate superintendent. We all of the livestock superintendents actually work more as a team, kind of as a big group, and we all kind of just pitch in together in Graham.
We do have a question. Generally, can you explain having the kids draw numbers?
Yes, so that is how we designate which kid will take which animal to start out for each species, because Krista mentioned that they take the horse exhibitors, the senior and intermediate horse exhibitors. Well, we just run all of our senior showmen into one group, and to avoid sending the champion exhibitor in that species in with their own animal, we just designate each of, like, for example, the 5 head of livestock, the 5 steers, for example, a certain number, and the kid goes through and draws which number of steer they will take into the ring.
So does the champion ever get to show their animal in the round robin or no?
Not necessarily. Could potentially happen when they rotate at halfway through, but not always.
Okay, thank you.
Which has been, some people like that and some people don't, as most things county fair. So
I should have mentioned, because we do allow that. That is how ours operates. That the animal that you qualify with is the one that obviously you're going to be assigned to. We do give technically a fitting score as well as a showmanship on the animal that you qualified with because it's your animal. So
Interesting.
yeah.
I guess I'll throw this out there too as a former agent and a 4-H parent. I for the majority of my career, we did not have a separate superintendent for the round robin. Like Jenna Lee mentioned, our livestock superintendents did a really great job of working together as a team. However, there were a couple of ladies who had been past superintendents in one livestock species and approached me one year and really wanted to take that on to be the organizers of the whole thing. And that, for me as an agent, was a huge help. I don't know, Sarah Lagrone is on and is the agent in that county now. I think she might agree with me, but I think that was really helpful to me as an agent. Let's see, there is the question in the chat. Do any other counties have a separate superintendent for round robin? It looks like Shannon in Shawnee County is the superintendent for round robin. I know that Cowley County does. Are there others that have a separate superintendent? And that can be a great way to maybe bring somebody in that doesn't necessarily want to be in charge of an entire department. Being in charge of an entire species can sometimes be a lot because it handles check-in and the show and potentially the sale portion of that and loadout and things like that. So round robin is kind of a good way to maybe pull somebody back in as a volunteer if they're willing, or help them to transition out as well. Looks like Haskell County has a separate superintendent for round robin, and Nemaha County does, and also Cheyenne County. We've got 11 more minutes. Any other suggestions or interesting things that you all do, or questions? The rest of you who are on here, feel free to share as well.
Hey, Kelsey, this is Jessica, agent in Kearney County. I was just wanting to check in on how everybody merges FFA and 4-H. It's something I'm looking forward to hopefully doing in the next year. Do they get their own classes and compete in some other classes at all, or do they just all go right in together? Or how is that any different, I guess? Does anybody
Yeah.
do it different?
I'll let some current agents answer as well. But traditionally what I've seen across the state is those FFA chapters are incorporated the same way a 4-H club is. And so they would show from their chapter. Now I do know of one county, Lynn County actually, has a separate division for FFA. They run their FFA separately. They have separate prizes. The FFA doesn't show in the same classes. There might be some crossover with showmanship and round robin. That would be Abby Powell could give you more information on that. But I would open it up to any other agents, or superintendents or fair board members that would want to share how FFA is combined. I would really encourage you to start having those conversations with those FFA instructors now and figure out how to best include them. Like Todd shared earlier, there's a lot of different ways, and sometimes it depends on the FFA advisor, how they interact. Sometimes what I have witnessed a lot of times is those FFA advisors are happy to be there and help during the fair, but maybe are not necessarily involved in the production of putting the fair together. But I'm certain that varies across the state.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I just figured I guess we'll have to have a meeting and to kind of set expectations and what everybody would feel like would be best for our county.
Yeah, I would encourage that. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions or comments? This is a quiet group. A comment, in Crawford County, they used to reserve a fair board spot for an ag teacher. So that might be an idea as well. It gives value to the ag teacher being involved in the fair and gives them kind of a specific role.
Kelsey, sorry, I was restarting Frozen and couldn't make it back to my computer fast enough earlier. But I was just gonna say, yes, for our superintendents, the other thing that so we have 2 ladies, and it actually changed to a different 2 ladies this last year, but something that they do, like, I get the score sheets ready for them before the fair and kind of have all that ready, but leading up to the fair, they go around and kind of raise their own little amount of money, and they get t-shirts for all the round robin kids, and kind of little gift bags for them too of different things. In our county, our round robin is just champion reserve of seniors, and so we try to keep it kind of a special thing in our county that you look forward to as a young kiddo looking up, that when you hit senior, you get to be in round robin or to go to. And so that's just something I do really very much appreciate, those superintendents and the work that they do of getting those kids extra little giveaways.
Thank you, Sarah. I do see that a couple other things have come in the comments, and I'll just share with you. So it says, so we have a young lady that is allergic to goats, so we've added a knowledge component. 70% is showmanship, and then 3 questions for 30% knowledge. And that's a good way to add that in. As a person who has a daughter that shows goats and is allergic to goats, we have found that long sleeve shirts really help with that, but it could depend on her allergy if she's got a severe allergy. And I know that there has been a time where a lot of questions were asked during round robin. We don't see that as much now, but that is another important component, would be knowing their livestock. There is a question about, do any other counties have bucket calf? Do you try to incorporate those kids into round robin? From what I've witnessed across the state, Trish, and I'll let agents also weigh in here, most of the time bucket calf is not included in round robin. However, does anyone else have have anything to share as far as bucket calf goes?
It's not in Neosho County. I guess in my mind, it's maybe a little bit of a safety concern for me. I mean, typically those are, those kids are pretty small that have a bucket calf, and then to rotate through and potentially show a market steer, that would make me pretty nervous.
Mhm.
We also do not have bucket calves in Graham County, and actually, just to Krista's point, we actually had the conversation this past year about potentially adding junior to the mix of our round robin, and the safety concern was the biggest hindrance in that going through as well. So
Awesome, thank you. Anyone
I have
else?
I have a question. I'm just curious for the counties that have that allow them to pick their species. So if they got champion in multiple species and they get to pick which species that they show or qualify in, do you see them picking their species on what friend they can get into the if they're say they got champion in hogs and champion in cattle, do you see them picking a certain species to allow whoever the third place is to come on up? We saw that, and so I was just curious if other counties saw that too.
Yes, I would say that definitely goes on in Neosho County, or maybe not yes, maybe a friend, but also somebody that maybe hasn't had the opportunity before, and they feel like they want to give somebody a shot at it. But yeah, it's their choice.
we they are allowed to pick in Graham as well, and I would say that certainly probably happens to some degree, but in most cases I feel like they're going to pick the species that they feel they have the best edge in, maybe. So not always, but definitely could happen.
There are a few answers in the comments as well, related to bucket calf, and then also choosing your species one that bucket calves are allowed to show in junior showmanship. And then if they would like, they have the opportunity for round robin. And then the comment that sometimes they see kids maybe picking the person who's less of a threat as far as the showman. I had years where I had boys in beef and we only allowed senior, that they wouldn't show in showmanship because they didn't want to do round robin. And I had years where those boys did show in showmanship and chose not to do round robin. So there were some years that a couple of our species, it was difficult to get kids to show in round robin, and that was about the time that we had the two ladies come back and really want to revive the round robin competition and make it special and make it a big deal.
And that was why in Graham we changed the rules, which I know is probably controversial, but we changed the rules to where if you're going to participate in showmanship, you're agreeing to participate in round robin, because we were really struggling to get kids to participate once they had been chosen, and we would be 6 or 7 kids down before we found somebody to do that species. So that's a tough one.
We are getting ready to be kicked back to the main session, but I do see that there is a question about whether there are any no-fit counties in Kansas. So be thinking about that. You can reach out to me, and I can share with Amy if there are any. I imagine with the updated fitting rules just being pretty recent, there probably still are some counties that are no fit. So, and with that, I'm going to let you all go ahead and leave the breakout room to go back to the main session. Thank you, Jenna Lee and Krista, for sharing, and we'll see you all back in a little while.